Everybody. This is August. Welcome to the Selling My Business podcast. Today, I'm here with Doug Brown. He's been a business consultant for over 25 years, helping large and small businesses help them plan and carry out strategic initiatives, including in the past 5 years, preparing for the ultimate strategic choice of transitioning to new ownership. He started, owned, and sold his own small business in the automotive services space. He has written 6 books on business topics, one of which achieved international bestseller status, and he is a licensed commercial real estate agent and certified appraiser. So, Doug, tell me a little bit more about your background and what got you into being a business broker.
Okay, well, I think like most business brokers, actually, it's not something you start out thinking you're going to do. In fact, when I sold my business, I didn't know that there were business brokers, and I made every mistake in the book. Now, looking back on it, thinking, well, that was bad. But I did sell it. I was lucky in that. But then a lot of the after sales stuff that even still lingers on now years later. So I got into it. Basically, I was doing business consulting here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. And Transworld actually approached me and said, well, you're doing all this consulting. What would you think about being a business broker? And, well, I don't know. What is that? And so we talked about it, and I looked at it a bit, and it's actually a great fit. I wish I would have started it many years ago. I really enjoy working every day with small business owners, particularly. They have serious things that they have to do, and they don't have a lot of help. In my background, a lot of it was with larger companies that had money to throw around, and after 20 years of telling people what to do, and then 5 years later, they come back and ask for the same advice because they haven't done it. Gets a little tiresome, but you don't have that in business brokerage. People really have a need, and you're fulfilling a need. So it's great.
Yeah. So you mentioned early on that you made some mistakes when looking to sell your business. What were some of those mistakes that happened?
Well, I didn't know. Of course, I guess they did have the internet back then, but it's not what it is now. Yeah. So I didn't really know where to find a buyer. I advertised, I did a couple of things like that. I had no way. This is actually a big thing. I had no way to vet the buyer. I could have, I guess, if I'd have known, I should have. So I had no way of finding out whether the guy had 2 or 3 other issues and liens against him and all this kind of stuff. The transition went pretty well. I probably should have known when the buyer wasn't terribly interested in how we were doing all these processes. We had a lot of really good contracts and things that we'd gotten because it was one of these mobile oil change businesses, but we hired good folks. We paid them above market to keep them. We had a very specific process because I ran on the theory that, I'm charging $50, $80 to do a service on a vehicle. If it's screwed up, they're going to send me a bill for $4,000. So I don't want to be in that situation. And the buyer never grasped that. They feel like, oh yeah, well I could get some other guys and pay them minimum wage. And it wasn't long after, I guess I'd probably been gone for 2 or 3 months and had a couple of big companies came after him for vehicles that he'd messed up and stuff, which is why he found it difficult to pay his part of the seller financing, which was the issue that lingered on.
Okay, got it. So, Doug, where are you located, and what types of businesses do you work with nowadays?
So I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia, which is east of Richmond, not as far as Norfolk, equidistant between those 2 areas, and I mostly work the area in between. Now we Transworld have a bunch of business brokers up in Richmond. We have all different franchises down in Norfolk. So I'm very happy working this area because one thing I've found is as a business broker representing a seller, whether they're a seller now or whether I'm advising them that they're going to sell in the future, it's very difficult to do from hundreds of miles off, even, today with the internet and Zoom and all that. But for example, if I have buyers who want to take a look at a business, it just doesn't work for me to say, oh yeah, I'll be up in, on the Eastern Shore, 3 weeks from now. How's that? One thing I've found that's kind of weird with buyers is they'll do a lot of financial analysis and all of this, but what they really want is the business they can go visit on Thursday.
Mhm.
And like, you're going to spend all this money and that's your main criteria is you have to be able to visit it next Thursday. But yeah, they get frustrated and they walk off and they'll go look at a different business if the buyer's not available, or rather if the seller's not available, if the agent can't take them over, that kind of stuff. So I prefer to stay within 75 miles of my base.
Got it. Got it. And so I see you have a shirt. I think it says Business Value Booster, correct? So what does that mean? What does
So
that
when
do?
I'm doing business brokerage, I work with Transworld, which is, a very large business brokerage, which is handy if you're trying to sell. But before businesses are ready to sell. So first thing, and I'll work with when I speak with somebody who's thinking about their business, we'll get a time frame as to what they're thinking about doing. There are many, many things that they can do to prepare the business to sell. And if the business isn't ready, it's not going to sell, even if it's not profitable. So one of the horrible statistics that people don't want to talk about much is, we talk about how a startup is very risky because 80% of them fail within 5 years, all that kind of stuff. What that really means is that the founder runs out of money in 5 years. But when you go to sell a small business, even a profitable one, the statistics on it are horrible. Over 80% of them do not sell. The founder just closes their door. They get nothing for them, whatever. And the reason is that they have some things that they could have done in the last year or so, but they didn't. And now they're in the market and the buyers are going, well, I'm just not going to take that risk. And they move on and they're left with nothing. Even if the business was quite profitable, it'll see the owner through until they decide to stop. But the day they stop, it's done.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So what are these big mistakes that they're making?
Well, not to flack it too much, but so the book that covers my business value booster system is about basically 15 things you can do to prepare your business for the market. And the first 4 things are what I call showstoppers, because that's what they do. If you've got this, the show stops. I call it, stop, STOP, right? Makes sense. First of all is the seller's attitude. There's a lot of sellers that do not want to hear about the idea that this market is a market. The price is going to be what the market says, not what they want. If they want a better price, they're going to have to do some other things to make the business more attractive. And sometimes they act like they're doing the buyer a favor by even letting them look at the business. And you've seen business owners like this. Sometimes they even do customers a favor by letting them in the store at all. And if you're that kind of owner, you're not going to sell. Second one is taxes, licenses, and books. If your books don't add up to the same numbers in your taxes, you're not going to sell. Because a buyer is not going to come in, look at your business, scratch their head, try and figure out why the numbers you told them in your sales prospectus don't seem to match. They're not going to have their accountant sitting there at $150 an hour to explain your books to you. They're just going to move on. There's plenty of other businesses for sale. Owner dependency is a critical thing. If the business cannot operate without the owner. So if you take 3 weeks of vacation and the revenue stops, then the only person who can buy your business is someone who's just like you, because it means you've got a special skill set. You can keep money as long as you keep making money as long as you're there. Take vacation, you don't get paid. You can only sell to someone who's just like you. And if they are just like you, what are they buying other than your customer list? And the last one is just premises, professionalism. If the business looks terrible, you walk in there, it's just a pile of loose papers. People are running around with their heads cut off. It's not a very professional environment. This buyer is thinking, gosh, is this the environment I want to work in for the next 20 years? If they're even thinking, I'm not sure, the answer is no.
Yeah. So let's look on the other side of things. Let's say, how does a business owners listening to this, that's awesome, that's STOP kind of acronym. What about on the other side of the spectrum and saying, what things really move the needle to increase a business's valuation?
Well, that's what the other 2 pieces of my framework are. One is what I call plus, and the other is tops, right? I won't go through the whole thing because we don't have time, but in general, obviously profits, because So the thing business owners don't understand is that your price of your business is on a curve. It's not a normal curve. And one thing, it's got that huge blip on one side, which is zero, right? So no matter how profitable your business is, if you got one of those stop factors, you're not going to get anything. But setting that aside, there's this curve where typically businesses will get somewhere between 1.5 and 3 times their net earnings is what they're going to sell for. It's not magic. It's not voodoo. All it is shorthand for a small business poses a certain risk compared to, say, buying a $10 million company that's been around for 40 years. There's not a lot of risk there.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of upside either. But so a buyer is looking at a 25 to 30% risk loaded return on investment, which means 2 to 3 times your net, right? So that's where that magic number comes from. The more risky your business is, the more they're going to load that up, and they're going to say, no, I think maybe 1 times the net, maybe 2 times. That's all I'm willing to pay, because it's possible that this business goes sideways on me after the founder leaves. So it's a curve. And then the question is, where do you fit in that curve? You as the seller, you don't get to move that curve. That's what the market's talking about. There's 200 businesses out there. That's the price. The only question is, are you going to be on the 1 times or the 3 times, which makes a huge difference, right? If you're pulling in 150,000, that means you could sell your business for 150, or you could sell it for 450. Well, that's pretty massive. Yeah. So you want to do some of the things that you could do so that the business is ready to sell, but those things can't be done in the last 4 or 5 months. So one of the things that owners fail to recognize is they're all busy already. I never met a small business owner yet that thought they were underworked, right? I mean, we'd like to get them there to where they can be semi-absentee owner, but they're all busy all the time. Selling a business is not totally full-time, but it's probably 30, 40% of your time selling one business, which is why I try not to represent too many at once. And so you're going to take on another job that you don't even know how to do on top of the job you've got now. It's just not going to work.
So on that real fast, and I've heard that before. Why does it take so much effort when you're trying to sell? Because from a business owner standpoint, I feel like that's where they say the business broker is going to handle a majority of it for me. I'm going to probably just send documents to the business broker when they ask for it. But what's taking so much time from the business owner's side?
Well, there's a few things on the business owner side. Well, I'm saying if they were to do it themselves, here's what they would get to do. First, they would have to get the ads posted on these various different websites where somebody might find them. One of the things business owners forget about business brokers, and it's not the money, the main contribution they have is confidentiality. If you sell your business yourself, then you can't help but let people know that your business is for sale, because there you are, you're the owner. The instant they find this out, your staff's going to hear about it, and the best ones are going to start quitting because people are naturally that way. It's a risk thing. They think, well, I might not keep my job. I'm going to go get a new job. So you start losing staff. You've done this yourself. You pull up to a business you've done business with before. You drive up in the drive parking lot, and there's a big sign there saying for sale. Even if it's just a building, you think, I better find another place to get lattes because these guys are not going to be around.
Yeah.
Customers start leaking out. Suppliers are looking at, that long-term deal I was giving you, if you're going to be bailing out on me, we're not going to give you that rate anymore. So there's that. So you want confidentiality. Sorry statistic of being a business broker, about over 90% of the people who inquire about a business at a business brokerage never buy any business. It's not they don't buy that business. They never buy any business. And most of them never even had the capability to buy a business. They went to some programs as you can buy a business for nothing down. They see a bottom line price somewhere. They think, well, I got $50,000. I should be able to do something with it. So a lot of our time is spent just weeding out people that don't need to be wasting the seller's time. We do make sure that the word does get out properly, anonymized to all these various websites. So there's another thing for a seller to understand. Yeah, you can put your listing on Biz Buy Sell. but it'd be just like being on Google because you didn't buy the premium membership in those kind of websites, which are not cheap, to get premium placement. Your thing is coming up on page 6 or page 7 on the search, right? So like, when's the last time you went to page 7 of a Google search? Doesn't happen. So basically the business might as well not even exist. So there's that. We do a lot of discussion with potential buyers. Once they get past the point of being weeded out, I won't let them come talk to the owner or come talk to the business. So we've had a conversation about, what have you got in mind? What do you think this business is about? What is your desire? You know, I'm in Virginia. You're calling me from Texas, and you want to buy a gas station. Okay, how's this going to work exactly? Oh, you got a chain of 8 or 9 of them, and you want to put your nephew in one. Okay, that'll work. But you know, if you think you're going to relocate for some minimum wage job, this is not even making sense. So we'll kind of squeeze that out. We'll work out, you know, what's an acceptable deal. I'm not going to negotiate my seller down, obviously, but I can tell the buyer, look, that's never going to fly. You're wasting your breath now. Let's move it into the zone of realisticness.
Yeah. One quick question, because I know you've been around the block for a while. You know, let's say business owners that really struggled during the COVID time, where their production really dropped, their revenue really dropped. How is that affecting their ultimate sale price?
It's not now. I mean, unless they didn't come back to it. So basically, even during COVID, people were looking at it and go, okay, let me see your 2019 numbers. I understand your 20, I understand 21, but I should be seeing a curve, you know, coming back up. You know, now we're in 23. If you're not back up to 2019, you've got a serious challenge. The business is still going to be evaluated on the net, right? So here's the thing: the buyer is buying the potential, but they're paying for the actual. So if you're not back up to pre-COVID, they don't want to hear about where you were pre-COVID. Okay, so but you're not there now. You've had 3 years. You haven't figured out how to do it yourself. And yeah, this business probably could back up there, but obviously you don't know how. So, and we get this a lot from sellers. Yeah, the business could do this, but the buyer is going to be the one doing it. They're not going to pay you so that they can fix your business for you. They're going to pay you for what your business is today.
Yeah. So I know we've given a lot of great advice about, or to business owners about selling and you know, even about talking about buyers. Do you have any more additional tips you'd like to kind of give, some commonalities you see with, you know, business owners making specific mistakes, or commonalities with things when you're looking at books that, you know, you'd like to give some good advice to business owners to kind of get ahead of this?
Sure. The number one thing is, don't wait for someday. I mean, every business owner is busy. You say, hey, I'd like to talk about long-range plans for your business. I'm too busy for that. We'll talk about it someday when I've got more time. I'm not going to retire or sell this thing for years, right? So someday always comes up and taps you on the shoulder when you're not waiting. EPI, the Exit Planning Institute, did a survey of their customers. So these are folks who have already thought ahead far enough to think, oh, I need to get some thought planning my exit. And 67% of those reported that someday came for them an average of 7 years earlier than they expected. And if you're not thinking about it at all, it's going to get to you a lot sooner than you think. I mean, you think about it every day, somebody in your family gets ill, that could happen to you. Something happens, you know, with some other member of the family, that could happen to you. You got a business partner, they decide they want to go in a different direction from you. You're going to have to split the business up. You can't afford to buy them out. 2 of you are going to have to sell it. And now you're on a time frame, right? Instead of having that 3-4 years and someday, now you've got 6 months, a year, 2 years at the most. You know, this thing's staring you in the face. If you've got less than 18 months, you need to start selling right now. But if you think you've got more than 18 months, then we need to be having a conversation about, what exactly do you think your plan is for this business? And when is a good time for you to start thinking about moving it? And kind of what I tend to tell them is, look, the things that you would do to make your business more marketable when that time comes, whenever it is in the future, it happens that it makes it also more profitable right now. because you're going to have better processes, you're going to have better marketing, you're going to know who you are, those kind of things. So you're going to make more profit, and the business is going to be more enjoyable to own. We're going to do things to help you not be working in it 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, which will make it more enjoyable and it'll make it more attractive to a buyer, but it's a lot more enjoyable now. So if you can be more profitable and more enjoyable, why wait until someday? Let's talk about it now.
Awesome. So a lot of incredible information here. Really great stuff. So if there's any business owner that listening to this thinks this is awesome advice, wants to learn more about the books that you mentioned and potentially reaching out to you, what's the best way they can do that?
Sure. The best way to reach out to me is dbrown@tworld.com, because they probably, by the time they think about it, they're going to be in there. I need to sell my business mode.
Yeah.
You can look on businessvaluebooster.com and get a link to the books. If you're interested, they're on Amazon. But yeah, please don't wait. Someday's coming for you.
Awesome. Great stuff. Well, thank you so much for your time, Doug. Really appreciate the great insight. Thank you everyone who was listening to this and listened all the way through. Really appreciate you sticking around. And if you guys need any help with selling your business, we're here to help. So thank you.
Thanks, August.
Yeah, thanks. Cool. Sweet. Okay, let me stop the recording.